Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Finance and reads, what reports has he received on the economy?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I have seen reports from the recent G20 meeting of finance ministers. This is of the 20 major economies in the world who met over the weekend. The communique from that meeting noted that the global economic recovery continues to advance, even though it is somewhat fragile and uneven. Growth has been strong in many emerging market economies, and New Zealand is benefiting from some of that, but the pace of activity remains modest in many advanced economies. The G20 ministers noted that there are still significant downside risks, although they are different from country to country and region to region.
Craig Foss.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Given the significant impact of exchange rate movements on the New Zealand economy, what did the G20 finance ministers say about their approach to currency and monetary policy?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, first of all, they reaffirmed their commitment to monetary policy which is appropriate to achieving price stability. Second, they were committed to the move towards more market-determined exchange rate systems that reflect underlying economic fundamentals rather than competitive devaluation of currencies which do not reflect the underlying fundamentals. More broadly, they believe that the pursuit of structural reforms will help boost and sustain global demand, foster job creation and increase growth potential. The government is pursuing these kinds of measures, including, as they suggest, clear, credible, ambitious and growth-friendly medium-term fiscal consolidation.
Craig Foss.
To the Minister, what other reports has he seen about approaches to economic policy?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, following on from the G20, I see reports quoting Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard asking several groups, saying that many groups in Australia should continue to support the political consensus that has delivered 25 years of hard-won economic reform. She has said that this reform consensus is now under serious threat in Australia and that there is a risk of a return to economic populism. She guaranteed that her government would continue with more market-based reform, including in areas such as health and education. Clearly she wasn't influenced by what Phil Goff told her on his visit.
To the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, to the Minister. Does he still agree with John Key that New Zealand has, quote, the best monetary policy in the world? And if so, why since that date has the Governor of the Reserve Bank changed it to include the core assets ratio, consideration of liquidity ratios and a whole range of other tools that Minister deemed completely unorthodox?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I agree with the Prime Minister's view that New Zealand's monetary policy framework is appropriate for our situation, and we don't see significant reason for that to be changed. In particular, it's a bit odd to be hearing from a party who says it's worried about the cost of living to be advocating a monetary policy changes which would allow for significantly higher inflation.
Craig Foss.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister. What economic policy risk parallels are there between New Zealand and Australia?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, like Australia, for more than 2 decades New Zealand has enjoyed broad consensus around important issues like independent monetary policy, a simple and uniform GST system, an open and competitive economy and a commitment to free trade. I notice in Australia Mrs Gillard has talked about the prospects of economic Hansonism taking hold. In New Zealand this risk could be easily called economic Goffism.
Question number 3, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.